In an era where change is the only constant, a legal tremor is rolling through the U.S. real estate landscape. The reverberations of the settlement between the Justice Department and the National Association of Realtors are poised to fundamentally recalibrate the cardinal rules of buying and selling property in America. This isn't merely an adjustment, it's a seismic shift that could recast the fortunes of millions, from first-time homeowners in the bustling suburbs to titans of real estate brokering in high-rise glass towers. The magnitude of this upheaval cannot be overstated. On a crisp autumn morning, a gavel sounded in a federal courthouse that may well have rung the death knell for traditional real estate brokerage models in the U.S. The settlement between the Department of Justice and the National Association of Realtors mandates sweeping reforms, revamping how agents are compensated and how listings are shared among agents. Central to the agreement is the requirement that listing fees be made transparent to clients, potentially upheaving the norm of sellers footing the bill for both buying and selling agents. An esoteric tactic that many argued kept prices artificially high and competition low. With the stroke of that gavel, the curtain was pulled back on practices that have long been the industry's bread and butter. Critics argue that the opacity of these old ways hindered informed decision-making by consumers, effectively shackling buyers to higher costs and less flexibility. By mandating transparency, the settlement thrusts these shadowed corners into the spotlight. This newfound clarity is expected to empower buyers, encouraging a sharper scrutiny of costs and fostering a competitive spirit among agents vying for their business on not just service but price as well. The implications ripple outward, affecting not just how agents conduct their business, but also how they are perceived by the public. Trust, a commodity as valuable as any brick-and-mortar property in this industry, might be slowly restored in a sector often viewed with skepticism. The ground beneath the feet of real estate professionals is still quaking. The immediate response in the market has been a blend of apprehension and anticipation. Agents, traditionally reliant on commission structures that incentivized certain practices, must now navigate a landscape where their earnings could depend more on customer satisfaction and less on insider negotiations. For homebuyers, the effects are twofold. On one hand, the increased transparency should theoretically lower barriers to entry, making the first step onto the property ladder less daunting for many. On the other hand, as the market adjusts to these new norms, initial confusion and hesitance might lead to fluctuations in both home prices and the pace of sales. In tandem, ancillary industries such as mortgage lending and residential construction are bracing for shifts. Lenders might find a more informed buyer at their desks, demanding better terms. Meanwhile, developers watching the trend lines might alter their strategies, building more in regions with higher predicted growth driven by these changes. This could create localized booms in property development, but also potential busts if the recalibrated market takes longer to stabilize. Looking further ahead, the potential long-range impacts of these reforms are profound. They could catalyze a generational shift in homeownership patterns, with millennials and Gen Z potentially benefiting the most from a more transparent and competitive market. As practices evolve, so too will strategies, with technology and data likely playing starring roles in the next wave of real estate models. In sum, the settlement with the NAR is not just a redrawing of old boundaries, but the construction of entirely new landscapes. Stakeholders across the board, from a young couple eyeing their first home to seasoned brokers reevaluating their business models, stand at the threshold of potentially revolutionary changes. The effects will be observed, felt, and lived in the coming years, painting a new picture of American real estate, defined perhaps by fairness and clarity.